Hey guys, tonight we're plunging you, yes, you, straight into the roaring belly of a C-47 Skytrain over Normandy, June 6th, 1944. Not the postcard-perfect fields, but a shuddering metal beast reeking of sweat and bile, where dim red lights carve fear into young faces like shadows on a storm wall. You're an American paratrooper from the 101st Airborne, gripping your Garand as engines drone and German flak hammers the hull like wrathful gods. The plan's simple. Jump, rally, seize bridges to carve paths for D-Day's tide. Yet plans crumble in war's grip, leaving only chaos. Before settling in, if this resonates with your soul, consider subscribing to the video. Share where you're tuning from and the hour. I'm curious how far these echoes travel. Now, dim the lights, flip on a fan for that gentle hum, recline, and let's drift into this shadowed dawn together. The green light flares like a venomous eye in the dim red haze of the C-47's belly, and suddenly, everything unravels. You surge forward in line with the others, boots thudding against the vibrating floor, heart a wild drum echoing the engine's roar. No time for second thoughts. The siren wails its mechanical scream, urging you out into the abyss. You leap, and the night swallows you whole. A violent rush of wind that tears at your straps, whips your helmet, and scatters any illusion of control like leaves in a gale. For a breath-stealing moment, you're weightless, suspended in the void, until the parachute yanks open with a bone-jarring snap, as if the sky itself has decided to reel you back from the brink. Yet down you spiral, tracers etching fiery arcs across the blackness, German flag blooming in lethal flowers that claim a nearby plain in a burst of orange inferno. Its wreckage illuminates the chaos. Parachutes drifting like forlorn ghosts, some catching fire mid-descent, others vanishing into the shadowed moor below. The ground rises too swiftly, a treacherous lover rushing to embrace you. Not the soft, open field of the drop zone briefings. No, fate twists the knife with a thicket of trees, their branches lashing out like accusing fingers, ripping at your jumpsuit and drawing blood from your cheek. You crash through, limbs flailing, and plunge into a cold, sucking ditch, the mud greedy as quicksand pulling your chute under with you. Water floods your mouth, bitter and earthen, mingling with the taste of fear. You thrash, knife in hand, slicing at the risers that bind you like a drowned man's regrets. Finally free, you surface gasping, the chills seeping into your bones like an old wound reopened. Your M1 Garand clings loyally to your chest, slick but intact. Yet the leg bag, stuffed with grenades, extra clips, the tools of your fragile purpose, has torn away, lost to the night's indifferent grasp. Your compass needle spins mockingly, a drunkard's waltz. The map in your pocket, once a promise of order, now a sodden pulp, ink bleeding into oblivion. Alone in this alien landscape, you crouch low, ears straining against the distant crackle of gunfire and the muffled thunder from the beaches miles away. Normandy unfolds around you not as the romantic fields of training films, but as a labyrinth of shadows and whispers, where every rustle could be a German sentry, or just the wind mocking your isolation. You were meant to land with your squad, rally at a hedgerow crossroads, and seize a causeway to flood the invasion with Allied might. But war, that capricious thief, has stolen the script, leaving you adrift in enemy territory, a single thread unraveling in history's vast tapestry. Historians would later pore over maps, debating how these scattered drops, thousands of paratroopers flung like dice across the Cottenton Peninsula, sowed confusion in German ranks, delaying reinforcements to Utah and Omaha beaches. Yet in this moment, It's no grand strategy. It's the raw pulse of survival, the quiet dread that whispers, "What if this is all there is?" You wipe mud from your eyes, the slime clinging like accusations, and think wryly that at least this bog isn't the worst thing you've fallen into. It doesn't shoot back, unlike everything else waiting in the dark. Pushing forward on hands and knees, you navigate the first hedgerow, a wall of earth and tangled roots, ancient as the grudges that birthed this war, rising like a sentinel from the soil. It scrapes your palms, thorns drawing pinpricks of blood, but you haul yourself over, dropping into the next field, with a soft thud that echoes too loudly in your ears. The air hangs heavy with the scent of damp earth and distant smoke, a perfume of impending doom. Every step is a gamble. The plan's neat lines on paper dissolve into this fog of uncertainty, where north might lead to allies or a machine gun nest. You fumble for the cricket in your pocket, that small metal toy, a child's gadget turned lifeline, and give it a tentative click-clack, the sound cutting through the night like a hesitant prayer. Silence answers at first, stretching taut as a tripwire, amplifying the isolation that gnaws at your core. Then, faintly, a response. Click-clack, click-clack. Relief floods you, sharp and fleeting, as a shadow detaches from the gloom. Johnson, from the 82nd, his face a mask of mud and wide-eyed vigilance, mirroring your own fractured resolve. Together now, you move as phantoms, whispering fragments of the plan that no longer holds. He's lost his unit too, his voice a low rumble recounting the flak that shredded his plane's formation, scattering men like autumn leaves. You share a nod, the unspoken bond of the damned, and press on, the hedgerows closing in like judgmental elders, their branches whispering secrets of battles long forgotten. In the annals of D-Day, this scattering would be hailed as a stroke of unintended genius. The 101st and 82nd Airborne's disorganized descent, forcing German commanders like Rommel to hesitate, buying precious hours for the seaborne assault. But here, knee-deep in the mire of doubt, it's merely the prelude to endurance, a test of the human spirit's stubborn flame against the encroaching dark. You clutch your Garand tighter, its weight a cold comfort, and allow a fleeting, bitter thought. If plans were parachutes, yours just failed to open. Yet somehow, you're still falling, still alive, defying the pull toward oblivion. The night deepens, a velvet shroud pierced by sporadic flashes from artillery duels far off. Each boom a reminder of the larger maelstrom you're but a droplet in. Johnson's presence steadies you, his footsteps syncing with yours in a rhythm of mutual vigilance, but the vastness of Normandy's fields mocks your fragility. You were trained for this. Endless jumps over English moors, mock assaults on cardboard cutouts, but nothing prepares you for the soul's quiet unraveling in solitude's grip. A fox darts across your path, eyes gleaming like accusatory stars, and you freeze, breath held, until it vanishes into the underbrush. Such moments etch the absurdity. Here you are, a boy from some quiet American town, thrust into Europe's ancient quarrels, armed with steel and fading hope. Linking arms metaphorically, you and Johnson skirt a flooded marsh, the water reflecting the moon's indifferent gaze, and you ponder the irony. History's heroes are forged in these unseen hours, not under spotlights, but in the mud, where despair blooms like nightshade. As dawn's first whisper threatens the horizon, you hunker behind a low stone wall, the remnants of some forgotten farm, and scan the gloom for signs of life. The cricket's call has yielded this one ally, but the squad, the company, the division, they're ghosts in the ether, perhaps rallying elsewhere, perhaps silenced forever. You touch the creased photo in your breast pocket, your brother's grin, frozen in a pre-war summer, and draw from it a sliver of defiance. War strips illusions, revealing the raw sinew of will, much as it did for those who stormed beaches or defended crumbling cities in other theatres. Yet in this pre-dawn hush, you sense a timeless thread. Survival isn't glory, it's the quiet refusal to fade. Johnson murmurs about his farm back home, cornfields swaying under Iowa skies, and you listen, the words a fragile bridge over the chasm of fear. The first light creeps, casting long shadows that dance like harbingers, and you rise, ready to press on, for in the heart of chaos lies the seed of what endures. The hedgerows close in around you like the walls of some forgotten labyrinth, their earthen banks rising steep and unyielding, crowned with thorns that snag at your sleeves as if the land itself resents your intrusion. Each step sinks into the soft soil, a muffled betrayal in the oppressive quiet, where the night air hangs thick with the scent of wet grass and distant salt from the channel. You move with Johnson now, your breaths sinking in ragged harmony, but the vastness of Normandy presses down, turning every shadow into a potential grave. The cricket's call had bridged the void, pulling him from the gloom like a lifeline tossed into a storm-tossed sea. Yet together you feel no less adrift. Two specks in a canvas of uncertainty, where plans dissolve into the fog of what might come next. Linking your fates in this hushed dance, you skirt the edge of a flooded field, the water's surface a mirror to the moon's pale indifference, reflecting back your mud-streaked faces as strangers even to yourselves. Fear coils in your gut, not the sharp stab of imminent death, but a slow, seeping dread that every rustle might summon the enemy from the ether. A leaf crackles underfoot, and you freeze, pulse thundering in your ears like a distant barrage. Johnson halts too, his garron raised, eyes scanning the impenetrable wall of foliage. In that suspended moment, a wry whisper escapes your mind. If this is a German patrol slinking through, perhaps you could play at being ghosts, for surely even they fear the ancient spirits haunting these Norman fields. Older than any uniform or flag, the thought flickers, born of the absurdity that clings to desperation, a fleeting armor against the encroaching void. Yet no shots ring out. Only the wind sighs through the branches, mocking your vigilance with its careless freedom. You press on, the hedgerows guiding and confining, their twisted roots like veins pulsing with the earth's quiet fury, reminding you that this soil has witnessed invasions before. Romans, Vikings, now you, a reluctant heir to that bloody lineage. Johnson murmurs softly as you navigate a narrow gap, his voice a threadbare comfort in the solitude. He speaks of scattered drops like yours, how the winds and flak turned precise jumps into a lottery of survival, parachutes blooming erratically across the peninsula. Historians, in their detached wisdom years hence, would sift through reports and argue fiercely. Did this chaos confound the Wehrmacht, tying down divisions like the 91st Infantry and preventing swift marches to the beaches? Or was it merely a cruel gamble that cost too many lives in isolated skirmishes? For you, though, it's no debate. It's the raw arithmetic of endurance, where each misplaced trooper like yourself becomes a thorn in the occupier's side, unintended yet potent. The knowledge settles heavy, a quiet affirmation that your disarray might echo through the annals, a testament to resilience forged in the forge of misfortune. Yet as you duck under a low-hanging branch, the weight of it all presses, evoking a subtle irony. In today's world of mapped certainties and instant connections, such loneliness feels archaic, a relic that underscores the fragility of human bonds. urging a silent gratitude for the threads that hold modern lives intact. Your hand drifts instinctively to the pocket over your heart, fingers brushing the edges of that creased photograph. Your brother's grin captured in a sunlit yard back home, a world away from this shadowed realm. It anchors you, a talisman against the tide of doubt, reminding you of laughter and open skies, of reasons beyond the rifle's cold steel. Johnson notices, his own gaze softening in the dim light, and he shares a fragment of his story. A girl waiting in Des Moines, letters folded like promises in his kit. These exchanges weave a fragile web, linking you not just as soldiers, but as men clinging to echoes of normalcy amid the absurdity. The night deepens its hold, stars peeking through ragged clouds like indifferent witnesses, and you wonder at the paths that led here, from dusty American streets to this foreign soil, where survival demands a cunning the briefings never taught. A fox's cry splits the air, startling yet harmless, and in your mind's quiet corner, it sparks a bit amusing. Perhaps the animals have the right idea, slipping through the chaos unseen, while you blunder forward, marked by the clatter of gear, pausing at the crest of a gentle rise. You survey the rolling fields stretching into obscurity, dotted with farmhouses that could harbor allies or ambushes. The air cools further, a chill that seeps through your jumpsuit like regret, heightening the senses to every nuance. The faint rustle of wildlife, the distant rumble that might be thunder or tanks stirring. Johnson points to a silhouette, a church steeple piercing the horizon, a potential landmark from the maps now useless in your sodden state. You nod, the decision wordless, born of instinct honed in training fields far safer than this. As you descend, the hedgerows seem to conspire, their forms twisting into grotesque shapes that play tricks on weary eyes, evoking phantoms of battles yet unfought. In this liminal space, the war feels eternal, a cycle etched into humanity's bones, where today's paratroopers mirror ancient warriors lost in foreign myths, their courage a bridge to the present's fragile peace. The group, still just the two of you, feels embryonic, a seed of what might grow into defiance if luck holds. You share a K-ration bar, its flavor bland as forgotten dreams, yet it fuels the resolve to push deeper into the unknown. Johnson's presence tempers the isolation, his steady tread a counterpoint to your own hesitant steps, forging a bond in the crucible of shared peril. Yet beneath it lurks the undercurrent of fate's caprice. One wrong turn, and this alliance crumbles like the earth underfoot. Historians might later quantify the drop's impact. Over 13,000 paratroopers launched, many landing miles off target, inadvertently creating pockets of resistance that harried German movements. But in your veins, it's the pulse of immediacy, the unyielding drive to endure. A branch snaps nearby, and you both drop low, breaths held in unison, the moment stretching like a bowstring. Nothing emerges, only the wind, eternal jester, stirring leaves in playful deceit. In that hush, a subtle reflection surfaces. If patrols are the hunters, perhaps you're the elusive prey, dodging with a grace that belies the terror, a wry nod to life's persistent irony. Advancing through a narrow defile, the ground softens to marsh, sucking at your boots like reluctant lovers parting. The scent shifts, brackish water mingling with the earth's musk, a reminder of the sea's proximity, where comrades storm beaches under withering fire. You imagine them, waves of khaki crashing against concrete and steel, and feel a kinship that transcends distance, a shared tapestry of sacrifice. Johnson whispers of his drop, the flak that shredded formations like paper in a shredder, scattering men to fates unknown. His words paint the broader stroke. The 82nd, tasked with securing St. Mary-Église. The 101st with causeways behind Utah Beach. Their disarray a double-edged blade that sliced German response times. Yet as you emerge into a clearer field, the moon casting silver paths, the personal toll weighs heavier. The solitude that tests not just body, but soul, forging a resilience that echoes through generations, a quiet valor in the face of oblivion. The hedgerows relent slightly here, opening to a meadow where dew clings like unshed tears. You pause to orient, the cricket ready once more, its metallic chirp a beacon in the void. Johnson's hand steadies on your shoulder, a gesture of solidarity that speaks volumes in the silence. In this interlude, the war's absurdity sharpens. Flung from the skies like discarded confetti, you scramble to piece together purpose from the wreckage. A soft chuckle escapes inwardly. At least the Germans must be as baffled, chasing shadows in their own backyard, while you, the uninvited guests, improvise a deadly game of hide-and-seek. The thought, born from the depths of weariness, lightens the load fractionally, a spark in the gloom. You click the cricket again, the sound fragile yet defiant, and wait, the night holding its breath alongside you, as history weaves its inexorable thread through your fleeting existence. The meadow yields to another tangle of hedgerows, their forms hulking like ancient guardians etched from the soil itself, roots delving deep into secrets the earth refuses to surrender. You and Johnson weave through, your movements a cautious ballet, each footfall measured against the night's unforgiving silence, where a misplaced boot could unravel everything in a cascade of betrayal. The air grows denser here, laced with the faint tang of manure from nearby farms, a reminder that life persists in these shadowed corners. Cows lowing softly in the distance, oblivious to the human storm swirling above. Linking your path to the steeple's faint outline, you share a cigarette stub, its glow a fleeting ember against the vast black canvas, drawing you closer in murmured confessions. Johnson exhales smoke like a sigh from the depths, recounting how the jump's precision melted into anarchy, winds scattering men like chaff from a thresher, turning calculated descents into desperate improvisations. In that shared haze, a quiet reflection stirs. These barriers, perhaps crafted by some long-gone French farmer with a grudge against intruders, or merely to corral wandering cattle. Yet here you are, evading them as if the cows had the better sense, content in their fenced ignorance while you chase freedom through thorns. The cigarette dies, pinched out with a hiss, and you press onward, the ground undulating beneath you like a living thing, breathing in rhythm with your labored steps. Normandy's terrain unfolds as a riddle without answer, its fields a patchwork quilt sewn from centuries of toil, now frayed by the war's careless hand. You pause at a crossroads of sorts, a muddy track bisecting the hedgerows, tire ruts etched deep like scars from recent convoys. Johnson scans left, you right. The moon's sliver casting elongated shadows that dance mockingly, as if the night itself plays at deception. Historians, sifting through faded dispatches in quieter times, would trace how such disarray, paratroopers like you landing far from St. Mary-Église or the Merdere River bridges, unwittingly fractured German cohesion, forcing units like the 709th Division to chase phantoms instead of reinforcing the coast. Yet in this suspended breath, it's no tactical triumph. It's the intimate grind of uncertainty, where each decision feels like a coin flip in fate's indifferent game, echoing the timeless gamble of those who braved unknown shores before. their echoes urging you to persist in today's mapped certainties. A faint breeze stirs, carrying the scent of blooming nightshade, its sweetness a cruel juxtaposition to the bitterness clotting your thoughts. You adjust your pack strap, the weight a constant nag, and think of the briefings back in England. Neat arrows on maps, promising order, now mocked by this labyrinthine sprawl. Johnson mutters about his drop zone, meant for a rally with the 502nd, yet fate hurled him here, into your orbit, forging alliances from the wreckage like smiths hammering bent steel into something usable. The irony simmers subtly. War's grand designs reduced to these chance pairings, as if the general's strategies were mere suggestions, overruled by the whims of wind and flak. You nod, the gesture laden with unspoken understanding, and veer toward a denser thicket, the branches clawing like fingers reluctant to release their grip on the past. In modern reflections, such isolation underscores the luxury of connection, phones bridging distances in an instant. Yet here, it's the raw forge of character, tempering resolve in solitude's fire, a lesson in endurance that whispers gratitude for the threads binding lives today. The path narrows, forcing you to single file, Johnson's silhouette a reassuring bulk ahead, his Garan slung low, ready for the unseen. The ground softens to bog, sucking at your boots with possessive tugs, each extraction a small victory against the land's embrace. You recall fragments of history drilled in training, these hedgerows, bocage they call them, dating back to medieval times, walls against invaders long before Hitler's legions claimed them as defences. Now they serve as both shield and snare, channeling movements into kill zones or offering fleeting cover, a double-edged legacy that history's victors would later curse in their advance. Linking this ancient barrier to your plight, you feel the weight of continuity, as if you're but the latest in a procession of wanderers testing their mettle against unyielding earth. A distant owl hoots, its call a mournful query piercing the veil, and in your mind's shadowed recess, it evokes a bitter musing. Perhaps the birds are the true sentinels, watching empires rise and fall with feathered indifference, while you scramble below, mere mortals in a game of shadows. Emerging into a slight clearing, you halt, breath clouding in the cooling air, the chill a subtle thief stealing warmth from weary limbs. Johnson leans against a gnarled trunk, its bark rough as regret, and you exchange glances heavy with the unspoken. What if the rally points are mirages, swallowed by the night's voracious hunger? The stars wheel overhead, pinpricks of light indifferent to your strife, much like the satellites that now trace every step in a connected world, a stark contrast that highlights the isolation's brutal purity. Historians might quantify the night's toll, hundreds misplaced, some drowning in flooded fields, others captured at dawn, yet their ledgers can't capture the soul's quiet erosion, the way doubt creeps like ivy over resolve. You finger the photo again, its edges worn smooth by worry, drawing from it a spark of defiance, a reminder that survival isn't mere persistence, but a quiet rebellion against oblivion's pull. The clearing ends abruptly at another hedgerow, this one breached by a fallen tree, its trunk a makeshift bridge over the divide. You cross carefully, wood creaking underfoot like bones protesting the burden, and drop into the next enclosure, the grass damp and yielding. Johnson follows, his landing softer, and you continue, the rhythm of your steps a metronome against the chaos. In this progression, the war feels less like a cataclysm and more like a personal odyssey, each hedgerow a chapter in a saga of endurance, linking your thread to those who endured sieges or crossings in eras past. A subtle observation surfaces amid the strain. If these walls were designed to keep livestock in, they're doing a fine job herding you too, funneling desperation into narrow paths where hope flickers like a candle in the wind. The thought, tinged with the night's wry edge, lightens the load imperceptibly, a fleeting balm as you push deeper into the unknown. Dawn's whisper teases the horizon, a pale streak challenging the darkness. Yet the night clings stubbornly, its tendrils wrapping around you like reluctant farewells. You sense the shift, the air lightening, sound sharpening, as if the world awakens to judge your nocturnal trespass. Johnson points to a distant flicker, perhaps a lantern in a farmhouse window, a beacon of ambiguous promise, shelter or snare. Linking caution to curiosity, you veer toward it, the hedgerows parting reluctantly, their forms softening in the encroaching grey. History's lens would frame this moment as pivotal. The paratroopers' dispersal creating ad hoc disruptions that blunted German responses, buying time for the armada offshore. But in your veins, it's the pulse of immediacy, the unyielding quest for connection amid fragmentation. The farmhouse nears, its silhouette a hulking question, and you ready the cricket once more. Its click a fragile invocation against the gathering light. The structure looms, thatched roof sagging like weary shoulders, windows dark save for that solitary glow. You circle warily, the scent of hay and livestock mingling with the dew, evoking homesteads far removed from this contested ground. Johnson covers you as you approach a side door, heart a captive bird fluttering against ribs, the weight of potential discovery pressing like an unseen hand. In this threshold moment, the absurdity sharpens, flung from the heavens to skulk like thieves in a farmer's yard, where the true peril might be a pitchfork rather than a Mauser. The thought bubbles from exhaustion's depths, a quiet irony that steels your nerves as you signal readiness, the night yielding its secrets, one shadowed step at a time. The farmhouse fades behind you like a half-remembered dream, its lantern light swallowed by the encroaching mist, leaving only the damp chill to cling to your skin as you and Johnson delve deeper into the bocage's embrace. The hedgerows here twist with a more sinister grace, their earthen mounds rising like the spines of buried giants, channeling your path into narrow funnels where every whisper of wind carries the weight of potential doom. You move in tandem now, steps light as fallen leaves, the bond between you a silent pact forged in the night's indifferent forge. Yet the air thickens with an unspoken tension, the kind that coils like smoke from a dying fire, hinting at presences unseen. Suddenly, voices pierce the veil, clipped, guttural, unmistakably German, drifting from beyond the next barrier, low and casual, as if the speakers believe the darkness their ally alone. You freeze, a statue carved from adrenaline, and Johnson mirrors you, his eyes wide pools reflecting the moon's fractured gleam. Linking instinct to survival, you drop low, crawling toward the hedgerow's base, the soil cool and yielding beneath your palms, like a reluctant confessor. Peering through a gap in the foliage, the patrol materializes, 4 shadows in field grey, helmets bobbing like buoys on a restless sea, their Mausers slung carelessly, cigarettes glowing like malevolent eyes in the gloom. They chat idly, words lost to you, but tone laced with the boredom of routine, oblivious to the intruder's fate that has been placed in their path. Your Thompson feels heavier in your grip, its metal cold as regret, while Johnson's Garand rests steady against his shoulder, an extension of his resolve. No grand strategy unfolds here. It's the raw calculus of ambush, where hesitation invites oblivion. You nod once, the signal a threadbare agreement, and in that suspended breath, a quiet musing surfaces. If war were a game of cards, this hand's been dealt from the bottom of the deck, forcing you to bluff with bullets. The thought, edged with the night's sharp irony, steals your nerve as you aim, finger curling around the trigger like a lover's final caress. The world erupts in a staccato fury. Your Thompson chatters first, a mechanical snarl spitting lead into the dark, flames licking from the muzzle like tongues of accusation. Johnson follows, his Garand cracking sharp retorts that echo through the hedgerows, each shot a punctuation in the sentence of survival. The Germans crumple in disarray, one spinning like a marionette with severed strings, another clawing at the air before collapsing into the mud. 10 seconds stretch into an eternity, the air thickening with the acrid bite of cordite, a scent that sears your nostrils and coats your tongue like bitter ash from a funeral pyre. Silence descends abruptly, heavy as a shroud, broken only by your ragged breaths and the faint gurgle from one of the fallen. You rise slowly, legs unsteady as if the earth tilts in judgment, and approach the bodies, the ground slick beneath your boots, warm and treacherous. Kneeling beside the nearest, you check for signs of life. None, his eyes staring blankly at the stars, a cigarette still smouldering between lifeless fingers. Johnson's hands tremble as he rifles through pockets, scavenging clips and a grenade, necessities plucked from the wreckage of lives extinguished. The irony bites subtly. Thank you for the donation, you reflect inwardly, since they won't be needing these rounds anymore. War's grim charity, where the dead fund the living's desperate bid. Historians would later dissect such encounters, noting how these impromptu clashes, paratroopers striking from the shadows, pinned down German reserves, preventing the 352nd Division from fully mobilizing against Omaha Beach, turning individual acts of defiance into ripples that swelled the invasion's tide. Yet in this visceral aftermath, it's no calculated blow. It's the intimate toll of necessity, where each kill etches a scar on the soul, a reminder that survival demands a currency paid in fragments of humanity. Your hands shake as you pocket the spoils, the metal warm from another's touch, a ghostly transference that lingers like an unwelcome echo. Johnson stands, face ashen in the dim light, wiping blood from his bayonet with a rag torn from his sleeve. His movements mechanical, divorced from the man he was hours ago. The patrol's remnants lie scattered, uniforms muddied and torn, helmets askew like discarded crowns from a fallen kingdom. You avert your gaze from their faces, too young, too human, focusing instead on the practical. More ammo means another chance, a slender thread in fate's unraveling spool. Linking this moment to broader currents, you sense the war's inexorable pull, where such skirmishes mirror ancient ambushes in forgotten woods. Their lessons in resilience a bridge to today's fragile securities, where conflicts are waged with words and screens, sparing the soul's raw abrasion. The cordite haze dissipates slowly, drifting like spectres retreating from the scene, leaving behind a stillness that feels accusatory, as if the land itself mourns the intrusion. You and Johnson exchange a glance, wordless yet laden, the bond deepened by shared transgression, a fraternity baptized in fire. No triumph swells, only a hollow echo, the realization that this is but the first verse in a dirge that stretches toward dawn. Historians, poring over after-action reports, would credit these fleeting engagements with fracturing German command structures, buying precious hours for the seaborne forces clawing onto the sands. But here, amid the cooling bodies, it's the personal ledger that weighs heaviest, the subtraction of lives, the addition of burdens carried forward like unseen packs. A wry undercurrent surfaces amid the grim tableau. If patrols are the hunters, you've just turned the tables, though the prize feels less like victory and more like a poisoned chalice, sipped in the shadows of what you've become. Retreating to the hedgerow's cover, you reload with fumbling fingers, the clicks a metronome marking time's relentless march. Johnson slumps against the earth bank, breath steadying, his eyes distant as if peering into futures branching from this bloody fork. The night's chill seeps deeper, a companion to the inner frost spreading from the act just committed, yet it sharpens the senses, honing the edge of survival. Linking past to present in quiet reflection, you draw from the well of history. These moments echo the guerrilla strikes of partisans in occupied lands, their defiance a spark that illuminates the value of tenacity, a virtue that in contemporary comforts often lies dormant, awaiting its call. The stars wheel on, impassive judges, and you rise, the weight of the scavenged gear, a tangible reminder that endurance isn't forged in glory, but in these shadow transactions where life barters with death. Two more shadows emerge from the gloom. Paratroopers from the 506th, drawn by the gunfire's brief symphony, their faces etched with the same haunted vigilance. No introductions needed. The shared uniform suffices, welding you into a nascent unit, four now against the encroaching dawn. They nod at the fallen patrol, a grim acknowledgement, and you distribute the spoils wordlessly, clips passing like sacraments in a rite of continuance. The irony lingers subtly. Your group swells like a jury assembled from the damned, judging the night's verdicts with rifles instead of gavels. Historians might frame this coalescence as the unintended genius of the drops. Isolated men forming ad hoc bands that harried supply lines and sowed doubt in enemy minds. But in your circle, it's the alchemy of desperation, transmuting fear into fragile solidarity. The expanded group moves out, the hedgerows swallowing your passage once more. Their labyrinthine paths a metaphor for the war's convoluted soul. You lead now, Thompson at the ready. The weapons heft a cold assurance amid the flux. Johnson's presence at your flank steadies the tremor in your hands, a reminder that isolation yields to connection, however tenuous. As the first hints of grey tease the horizon, the night's grip loosens, yet the encounters etch deeper, carving paths in the psyche that time alone might smooth. Linking this nocturnal forge to the broader human saga, you sense the timeless valor in pressing on, a quiet homage to those who endured similar veils of uncertainty, their stories a beacon for today's navigators through lesser storms, fostering a profound appreciation for the light that follows darkness. The path ahead beckons, fraught yet inevitable, and you step forward, the echoes of the ambush fading into the chorus of what must come. The echoes of gunfire fade into the hedgerow's muffled hush, leaving behind a residue of cordite that clings to your skin like an unwanted memory, its acrid veil slowly lifting as you and Johnson melt back into the shadows. The patrol lies still, their forms dissolving into the earth's indifferent canvas, but the weight of the act lingers, a phantom pressure on your chest that no deep breath can dispel. Two more paratroopers materialize from the gloom, stragglers from the 506th, their eyes hollow mirrors of your own fractured gaze, drawn by the brief symphony of violence as moths to a forbidden flame. No fanfare marks their arrival, just a nod, a shared glance that weaves them into your fragile tapestry, expanding the group to four, a quartet forged in the night's capricious kiln. Linking arms metaphorically in this ad hoc alliance, You distribute the scavenged spoils. Clips clicked into magazines with mechanical precision. Grenades pocketed like reluctant talismans. Each item a bridge over the chasm of vulnerability. In the quiet reflection that follows, the absurdity simmers. Your ensemble now resembles a jazz band improvising in the dark. Notes of survival struck haphazardly, praying no one hits a fatal discord. The group moves as one now, a tentative organism navigating the bocage's labyrinth, where the hedgerows curve like the spines of ancient serpents coiled in eternal repose. Johnson's presence anchors you, his steady tread a counterpoint to the newcomer's hesitant steps. One of them, Riley, he mutters, clutching a bandaged arm from his own rough landing. You lead the way, Thompson at the ready, its barrel a cold extension of your will, while the others fan out slightly, rifles sweeping the shadows like cautious sentinels. The terrain shifts subtly, fields giving way to orchards where apple trees stand sentinel, their branches laden with unripe fruit that dangles like promises deferred. A distant rumble rolls in from the east, the beaches awakening perhaps, or merely thunder mocking your isolation. Historians, in their retrospective calm, would debate the chaos's dual edge. Did the scattered drops, flinging men like you across miles of hostile ground, truly disrupt German lines by creating unpredictable pockets of resistance, or did they merely amplify the toll, turning potential rallies into graveyards of the misplaced? Yet, as you skirt a fallen fence, the question feels abstract, a scholar's luxury. For you, it's the visceral pulse of adaptation, where desperation alchemizes fear into fleeting strength, echoing the timeless grit that separates endurance from erasure in humanity's shadowed annals. Riley whispers of his drop, words tumbling like stones down a well, flak shredding his plane, chutes blooming erratic, landing in a thorn-choked ditch miles from the murderette bridges. His tale mirrors yours, a mosaic of mishaps that binds you tighter, transforming strangers into kin under the night's impartial dome. You touch the photo in your pocket again, its familiar crease a balm against the rising guilt, the faces of the fallen patrol flashing unbidden, too human, too akin to the boys you left behind in training camps. The irony curls subtly in your thoughts. War's grand theatre reduces to these intimate executions, where victory tastes of ash, and the only applause is the wind's indifferent sigh. Linking this inner tumult to the broader weave, you sense the war's inexorable design, where such encounters mirror the guerrilla whispers of occupied lands elsewhere, their echoes a testament to the human spirit's stubborn flame, a light that in today's connected calm reminds us of the fragility beneath our certainties, fostering a quiet reverence for those who navigated without maps or mercy. The orchard thins, opening to a rutted lane where moonlight pools in puddles like spilled mercury, reflecting fragmented stars that seem to mock your earthbound plight. You halt at the edge, senses attuned to the subtle shifts, the faint clink of gear from afar, perhaps another lost soul, or the enemy regrouping in the gloom. The newcomers integrate seamlessly, one covering the rear with a bar's heavy assurance, its bipod scraping softly against the soil. Conversation flows in hushed fragments, tales of home, of sweethearts and sunlit fields, weaving a fragile shield against the encroaching dread. Yet beneath it simmers the undercurrent of fate's caprice. 4 men now, a pocket of resistance akin to those desperate holds in crumbling cities far east, where defenders clung to ruins with the same grim tenacity. Historians might parallel these stands, noting how isolated bands like yours harried supply routes, delaying panzers bound for the coast and tilting the scales in the invasion's favor. but in your veins, it's the raw arithmetic of continuance, where each added ally multiplies hope's slender fraction. A twig snaps nearby, shattering the reverie, and you drop low, heart sinking in a collective thud that drowns the night's subtler chorus. Shadows stir. Another paratrooper. No, the tension eases as a rabbit bolts from the underbrush, its flight a harmless farce in the theatre of peril. Laughter bubbles inwardly, tinged with the night's edge. Nature's jester, reminding you that not every sound heralds doom, though in this game, even bunnies outpace your stealth. Rising, you press on, the lane curving toward a distant copse where silhouettes hint at structures, barns perhaps, or bunkers disguised in pastoral guise. Riley binds his wound tighter, wincing silently, his pain a shared burden that deepens the camaraderie, linking you in the unspoken vow to endure for one another. The war feels less a cataclysm now and more a personal crucible, testing the metal that history reveres. A forge where ordinary men emerge tempered, their stories a bridge to present gratitudes where such trials are echoes rather than realities. The copse nears, trees clustering like conspirators, their leaves whispering secrets in the breeze. You circle warily, the ground littered with fallen branches that crunch underfoot like brittle bones. Johnson's Garand sweeps the perimeter, a vigilant arc, while the others hold back, breaths held in unison. The guilt from the patrol lingers, a spectral companion, but touching the photo grounds you, its image a beacon against the moral fog, reminding you that survival demands choices etched in shades of grey. Historians would later quantify the night's skirmishes, hundreds of such clashes fragmenting German responses, allowing the 4th Infantry to secure Utah with fewer losses. But here, it's the intimate ledger. Lives taken to preserve your own. A transaction that weighs on the soul like unseen chains. A subtle observation drift through the strain. If pockets of resistance are the war's currency, yours is minted in desperation, valuable only in the economy of chaos, where every hold buys time for tides yet to turn. Entering the copse, the trees envelop you in a denser gloom, their trunks stark pillars supporting a canopy that filters the moon's gaze into dappled patterns on the forest floor. Footprints mar the earth, recent, booted, hinting at passages before yours, allies or foes lingering like ghosts in the narrative. The group tightens, a cohesive shadow now, 4 rifles ready to speak if words fail. Linking this wooded sanctuary to the broader saga, you feel the timeless pull of hidden fights, where underdogs like you mirror partisans in distant forests, their defiance a spark that illuminates the value of cunning over might, a lesson resonating in today's strategic comforts where battles are simulated, sparing the heart's raw forge. The copse thins ahead, revealing open fields once more, and you emerge, the night's grip loosening as dawn's promise teases the edge of sight. The expanded unit feels potent yet precarious, a bubble of resolve in the vast uncertainty, where each member adds a layer to the armor of camaraderie. Riley shares a flask of water, its coolness a brief reprieve, washing away the taste of cordite, if not the memory. Johnson scouts ahead, his form blending with the shadows, a scout in this impromptu orchestra where harmony means survival. The irony lingers. Scattered like seeds in a storm, you've germinated into this ragtag ensemble, improvising melodies of resistance that history would applaud, though the notes feel discordant in the playing. Pressing forward, the fields roll gently underfoot, the air lightening with pre-dawn's subtle shift, carrying you toward whatever dawn decrees, a quiet testament to the enduring spirit that bridges eras. evoking gratitude for the peace that such nights secured. The copse relinquishes its hold reluctantly, spitting you out into a meadow where the grass bends under a dew-heavy veil, each blade a silent witness to your passage, glistening like tears unshed in the pre-dawn pallor. Your group, now 4 strong, a patchwork of resolve stitched from the night's ragged cloth, presses forward, the weight of recent violence a shadow trailing like a faithful hound, nipping at heels weary from the ceaseless march. Riley's bandaged arm swings awkwardly, a pendulum marking time's inexorable creep, while the 4th man, Ellis from the 101st, clutches his bar like a talisman against the encroaching void. Linking your steps in this tentative procession, you navigate a shallow dip where water pools in craters from some forgotten shelling, the reflections fractured and mocking, as if the earth itself mirrors your splintered unity. Johnson takes point now, his silhouette a reassuring bulk against the horizon's faint blush, guiding you toward what might be a rally point or merely another illusion spun from hope's fragile thread. Hunger gnaws with persistent teeth, a companion more constant than any comrade, its pangs sharpening the senses to the point of delirium. You rummage in your pack, fingers fumbling over the scant remnants. A crumpled K-ration packet, its contents as unyielding as the bocage walls surrounding you. Cracking it open, you distribute the crackers, dry and flavorless as forgotten promises. Each bite a gritty reminder of sustenance stripped to its barest essence. Riley chews slowly, his face contorted in mock ecstasy, and in the dim light, a quiet reflection stirs. At least these rations don't betray you mid-drop, unlike the jump plans that scattered you like confetti in a gale. The thought curls with the night's subtle edge, a wry balm born from the absurdity of expecting flavor in a world drained of color, where survival dines on crumbs while dreams feast on memories of home-cooked warmth. Linking this meager meal to the broader hunger of the hour, you sense the war's cruel economy, where bellies echo the emptiness of plans derailed. Yet in sharing these paltry bites, a fragile camaraderie blooms, roots delving into shared deprivation like vines claiming ruined stone. Ellis breaks the silence first, his voice a low rumble weaving tales of his landing chute tangled in an orchard, apples raining down like ironic gifts from an indifferent sky, bruising him more than any enemy fire. You listen, the words a lifeline tossed across the gulf of isolation, pulling you closer in this ad hoc family born of chaos. Johnson adds his piece, recounting a buddy lost to the murder it floods, waters claiming him as silently as the night claims secrets. The stories flow, halting at first, then gaining momentum like a stream fed by melting ice, each anecdote a brick in the wall against despair. Historians, poring over faded logs in calmer eras, would trace how such improvised units, paratroopers coalescing from the drop's disarray, disrupted German logistics, harrying convoys and tying down reserves like the 91st Luftland Division, granting the beaches a reprieve from swift counterstrikes. Yet as you swallow the last crumb, the knowledge feels distant, a scholar's map overlaid on your visceral terrain, where hunger isn't strategy, but the raw forge tempering will, echoing the age-old trials that honed humanity's edge, a legacy that in today's abundance whispers appreciation for the feasts we take for granted. The meal ends too soon, leaving a hollow that no words can fill, and you rise, brushing crumbs from your jumpsuit, like shedding remnants of a former self. The group expands subtly here, as 2 more shadows detach from a nearby thicket. Paratroopers from the 82nd, their crickets confirming kinship before rifles lower. No questions asked. The shared insignia suffices. welding them into your fold with the ease of rain merging into a river. Now 6, you feel the shift. A nascent force, fragile as a spider's web, yet resilient in its weave. Threads of individual fates intertwining against the storm. Linking this growth to the night's alchemy, you ponder the irony. Scattered like seeds in a tempest, you've begun to root, drawing nourishment from mutual necessity, where loneliness yields to the quiet power of numbers, a dynamic that mirrors ancient bands of wanderers uniting against the wild, their bonds a blueprint for the connections that sustain modern souls through lesser tempests. Patrols lurk in the periphery, their presence a spectral hum, forcing detours through denser bocage where thorns rake like accusing fingers, drawing beads of blood that mingle with sweat. You evade one such group, dropping into a ditch where mud embraces you like a possessive lover, its chill seeping through fabric to bone, a reminder that the land claims its toll regardless of allegiance. Riley winces as he shifts, his wound a throbbing metronome, yet he pushes on, his grit a silent sermon on endurance. The newcomers, Harper and Klein, share their burdens. Harper's radio shattered on impact, Klein's map lost to the winds, stripping them of tools that once promised order. In this exchange, the group's mosaic sharpens, pieces fitting with jagged precision, each man's loss a gain in collective wisdom. Historians might chart these evasions as pinpricks in the German hide, delaying reinforcements to Carentan and beyond. But in your huddled breath is the intimate dance with fate, where evasion isn't cunning but the soul's quiet rebellion against erasure, a valor that resonates across time, honoring the unseen struggles that paved paths to present peace. Dawn's fingers creep higher, painting the sky in reluctant grays, casting long shadows that stretch like accusations across the fields. Your group swells once more. A lieutenant from the 501st stumbles into your path, map in hand, though tattered, his authority a welcome anchor in the flux. With him comes another, a medic with a kit as depleted as your rations, yet his presence infuses a spark of hope. Bandages promising mending where wounds gape. Now 8, the unit feels almost substantial. A bubble of defiance in the vast uncertainty, where shared glances replace orders, instincts guiding like invisible currents. Linking this coalescence to the war's undercurrents, you reflect on the subtle mockery. Your division, assembled not by brass but by blind luck, a ragtag orchestra tuning instruments mid-performance, where harmony emerges from discord's depths. The lieutenant unfurls his map under a hedgerow shelter, fingers tracing lines that blur in the dim light, plotting a course toward a battery rumoured nearby, its guns a threat to the beach's fragile foothold. Hunger returns, a persistent spectre, but you ration the last of the K-rations, dividing chocolate bars into slivers that melt on tongues like fleeting joys. Klein jokes softly about the taste, cardboard with ambition, drawing a chuckle that eases the knot in your gut, a moment of levity blooming like a weed in cracked earth. The medic tends Riley's arm, his touch steady despite the tremor in his voice, recounting his own harrowing drop. These rituals bind you tighter, transforming strangers into brethren, where vulnerability shared becomes strength multiplied. Historians would later quantify the impact, such groups sabotaging roads and rails, stalling the 17th SS Panzer Grenadiers' advance. But in this huddled circle, it's the human arithmetic. 8 hearts beating against the tide, a microcosm of the invasion spirit, echoing the age-old alliances that turn tides, a legacy that in contemporary reflections evokes profound thanks for the unities we forge without such dire necessity. The map session ends with a nod, the lieutenant folding it like a fragile heirloom, and you move out, the bocage channeling your path once more. Its walls a corridor of fate, where every turn holds promise or peril. Fatigue weighs heavy, limbs leaden as if the night has poured its essence into your veins, yet the group's presence lightens the load, a collective buoyancy defying gravity's pull. Linking strides in this determined march, you sense the war's poetic cruelty. These bonds, ephemeral as mist, yet enduring in memory's vault, a testament to the human capacity for connection amid ruin, a bridge to today's interwoven lives where isolation is a choice, not a sentence. The horizon lightens further. Dawns advance a double-edged blade, illuminating paths while exposing vulnerabilities, and you press on. The group's rhythm a quiet anthem against the encroaching light. A distant patrol's murmur forces another halt, dropping you into cover where brambles scratch like forgotten grievances. The wait is a suspended breath in the symphony of suspense. The lieutenant signals patience, his eyes scanning with a veteran's calm, while you clutch your Thompson, its stock warm from your grip, a cold comfort in the flux. In this interlude, the irony drifts. 8 men, a force pieced from the drop's debris, challenging an empire with rifles and resolve, as if David had multiplied his slings but kept the giant's scale. The patrol passes unseen, their voices fading like echoes in a cavern, and you rise, the group intact, resilience etched deeper with each evasion. Historians might parallel this to other desperate holes, where small bands altered history's course. But for you, it's the intimate forge, tempering bonds that outlast the dawn's revelation. The fields roll on, the air warming with the promise of day, carrying you forward on waves of quiet determination. The ditch's embrace relinquishes you reluctantly, mud sloughing off in clumps like discarded regrets, as the lieutenant's signal propels the group forward once more. The rise ahead beckoning with a deceptive gentleness that masks its perils. Your boots sink into the softening earth, each step a negotiation with the terrain's whims, where the bocage's walls curve inward like the folds of a labyrinthine mind, channeling doubts as much as directions. Johnson flanks left, his gaze sweeping the horizon's greying edge, while Riley, bolstered by the medic's arm, presses on with gritted determination, his wound a throbbing underscore to the group's collective resolve. Linking breath to laboured breath in this ascent, you feel the unit's fragile architecture strengthening, no longer a mere collection of stragglers, but a living entity, pulses sinking against the war's indifferent rhythm, where shared silence speaks of bonds forged in the crucible of uncertainty. The air lightens subtly, carrying faint scents of salt from the distant channel, a whisper of the beach's turmoil that echoes in your bones like a far-off dirge. Hiding becomes second nature now, the group dropping into cover at every suspicious rustle. A fallen branch, a bird's startled flight, ditches swallowing you whole, their earthen depths a temporary tomb where time stretches like taffy, sweet with anticipation, yet sticky with dread. In one such refuge, the distant battles swell into clarity, rifles cracking like brittle bones, mortars thumping with the finality of judgments past, each sound a thread in the invasion's vast tapestry, weaving your isolation into its grander design. Riley shifts uncomfortably, his face etched with lines that age him beyond his years, and the medic murmurs reassurances, his voice a gentle current in the stagnant air. You lie pressed against the cool soil, Thompson cradled close, its weight a cold assurance amid the flux, while thoughts drift to morale's elusive core. Not the fiery patriotism of recruitment posters, but a quieter flame fueled by duty's grim hand and fear's insistent prod. The twin engines driving you not toward heroism, but away from the abyss of failure. Linking this vigil to the broader symphony of the dawn, you sense the war's austere harmony. Men bound by necessity's yoke, echoing the silent packs of guardians in shadowed vigils past, their endurance a bridge to today's vigilant comforts, where alerts chime softly, sparing the heart's raw watch. The battle's raw crescendos, a mortar's whine slicing overhead before detonating nearby, showering the ditch with clods of earth that patter down like reluctant applause. You press flatter, face to the mud, its scent earthy and primal, a reminder that survival roots in the basest elements, where fear isn't an enemy but a teacher, honing instincts dulled by the night's endless drain. Johnson whispers of his pre-jump nerves, the way fear coiled like a spring ready to snap, yet here it propels rather than paralyzes, a subtle alchemy turning dread into drive. The lieutenant hushes the talk, his eyes scanning the lip above, but in the enforced quiet, reflections surface. Morale from duty or fear? Perhaps both, intertwined like the bocage's vines, where obligation to the man beside you outweighs abstracts, much as in ancient holds, where defenders clung not for kings, but for kin. Historians might pass this as the drop's calculated risk, scattered forces like yours drawing German eyes inland, easing the 1st Infantry's hell at Omaha. But in your buried hush, it's the soul's quiet bargain. Endurance bartered for the dawn's promise. A valor that resonates across eras, evoking gratitude for the securities that such nights purchased with unseen coin. The explosion's reverberations fade, leaving a ringing that blends with the group's subdued breaths. The ditch a cocoon where vulnerabilities knit into strength. Ellis covers the rear, his rifle sweeping arcs that carve safety from the unknown, while Harper hefts his bar, its bipod scraping softly against the soil like a reluctant confession. In this interlude, the irony drifts subtly. If the Germans crest the rise now, it'd be a surprise gathering, though the refreshments would likely be this endless mud, molded into something resembling hospitality from the depths of our plight. The thought, edged with the dawn's wry light, lightens the oppression fractionally, a spark amid the gloom where laughter defies the weight, turning desperation's lens on the absurd. Linking resolve to the lifting haze, you feel the unit's pulse quicken, shared peril a forge tempering the collective will, a dynamic that mirrors the improvised kinships of law, where small bands altered fates with grit over gold, their legacy a whisper in contemporary weaves where connections are curated, not clawed from chaos. The lieutenant signals the all clear, and you emerge from the ditch, brushing dirt like shedding layers of doubt, the air fresher now with the promise of day, though it carries the acrid tang of smoke from far-off fires. The group reforms, steps sinking in a rhythmic advance that belies the fatigue etching every face. Riley's limp a testament to the toll yet unyielding spirit. The rise steepens, the battery's position drawing nearer, its threat a spectral hum on the wind that sharpens senses dulled by the night's drain. Conversation lulls to essentials, ammo counts, water shares, each query a probe into the group's vitality, revealing Klein's feverish brow, Harper's blistered hands. Yet in this inventory, resilience gleams, the unit's fabric strengthening with each admission, where weaknesses become welds in the armor of camaraderie. Historians would later quantify the dawn skirmishes as pivotal, groups like yours delaying the 17th SS Panzer's rush, granting the Armada offshore its foothold. But for you, it's the intimate ledger, fear transmuted into fortitude, Duty the anchor against despair's tide, a human equation that echoes the age-old stands turning despair into dawn, fostering in modern reflections a profound respect for the unities forged without such fire. The slope plateaus into a wooded copse, trees clustering like conspirators in hushed council, their leaves whispering as you infiltrate, seeking vantage against the battery's rise. The lieutenant halts here, unfurling his map once more under dappled light, fingers tracing contours that promise a flank, though the paper's creases speak of plans frayed by reality's edge. Johnson scouts the perimeter, his form blending with trunks scarred by prior blasts, while the medic tends Klein, sulfur powder stinging like a rebuke against infection's creep. In this wooded sanctuary, morale crystallizes further, not from victory's rush, but from the quiet defiance of persistence, where fear's shadow lengthens, yet fails to eclipse the flame of duty. Linking stride to shared gaze in this brief respite, you ponder the war's poetic austerity, these moments, ephemeral as dew evaporating under sun's gaze, yet enduring in the soul's vault, a testament to the capacity for light amid ruin, a bridge to today's illuminated paths where shadows are choices, not chains imposed by fate. The copse offers fleeting cover, branches arching overhead like protective arms, though their shelter feels as tenuous as the dawn's hesitant advance. Ellis positions himself at a vantage, rifle nestled against bark rough as unresolved grief, while Harper calibrates his bar, its mechanisms clicking like a clock ticking down to revelation. The distant battles persist, a chorus that underscores your seclusion. Yet in the group's hush, hope flickers, a spark nurtured by the embers of mutual reliance. The lieutenant outlines the approach, stealth over storm, guile against guns, a plan born from necessity's womb, where duty overrides fear's whisper, driving you toward the rise with the inexorable pull of tide to shore. In this preparation, the irony lingers. 8 men, a force cobbled from chaos, poised to challenge steel with flesh, as if the stars had aligned in mocking configuration, their light a wry commentary on mortal hubris. The map folds away, and you move, the copse yielding to open ground, where grass sways like supplicants before the wind. The battery's silhouette sharpens, a hulking form against the lightening sky, its threat palpable as a gathering storm. Riley's pace steadies, bolstered by the medic's aid, while Klein shakes off his fever with grim tenacity. The group's rhythm a quiet anthem defying the dawn's exposures. Linking resolve to the horizon's glow, you feel the timeless valor in this advance, a homage to those who marched similar paths of peril. Their stories a beacon illuminating the value of peace earned through such shadowed dawns, extended in gratitude for the light that follows. The rise nears, the air thickening with anticipation, carrying you on waves of quiet determination toward whatever the battery decrees. The copse's dappled shelter yields to open fields once more, the trees parting like reluctant confidence whispering final secrets before releasing you into the dawn's unforgiving gaze, where the bocage resumes its labyrinthine grip, walls rising like the ribs of some colossal beast long buried in the soil. Your group, 8 now, a fragile edifice built from the night's scattered bricks, advances with measured caution, the lieutenant's map consulted in fleeting glances, its lines blurring under the strengthening light as if the ink itself doubts its own authority. Johnson scouts ahead, his form a shadow melding with the undulating terrain, while Riley, steadied by the medic's arm, pushes forward with a limp that echoes the group's collective ache, wounds both seen and unseen weaving through your ranks like threads in a frayed tapestry. linking step to hesitant step. You feel the unit's tenuous harmony deepen, no longer just survivors, but a breathing whole where each man's burden lightens in the sharing. A subtle alchemy turning isolation's lead into the gold of mutual defiance against the encroaching day. Objectives loom in the lieutenant's hushed directives. A road to sever, a battery to silence. Points on the map that promise purpose amid the disarray. Yet their pursuit feels like chasing mirages across a desert of doubt, where every rise conceals not just peril, but the gnawing question of worth. The beach's distant roar swells intermittently, a tidal symphony of chaos where waves of men crash against fortified shores, their fates intertwined with your inland vigil, a reminder that your scattered efforts feed into that greater surge. Historians, in their dispassionate chronicles, would weigh the paratroopers' toll heavily. Nearly a third lost to the drop's whims, drowned in floods, snared by trees, cut down in isolation, yet crediting those who endured with blunting German blades, delaying the 21st Panzer's thrust, and granting the 82nd Airborne's gliders safer fields. Yet as the sun's first rays pierce the haze, painting the bocage in reluctant gold, the statistics dissolve into irrelevance. It's the visceral cost etched in Riley's pallor, the medic's weary eyes, where survival isn't measured in divisions held, but in breaths stolen from the reaper's grasp, echoing the age-old ledgers where humanity's grit outlasts empire's arithmetic. A legacy that, in today's calculated conflicts, evokes a quiet awe for the unscripted valor that secured freedoms we navigate with ease. Wonder creeps in as you crest a gentle swell, the beach's thunder growing clearer, a low growl that vibrates through the soil like the earth's own lament, stirring visions of comrades storming ramparts under withering fire, their waves breaking against concrete teeth. You pause in a shallow depression, the group fanning out for cover, rifles sweeping arcs that carve temporary safety from the unknown. The lieutenant unfolds the map again, its creases deep as worry lines, fingers tracing paths that twist like veins pulsing with uncertainty. Johnson peers over his shoulder, murmuring about landmarks swallowed by the drop's disarray, while Harper adjusts his bar, its weight a burdensome vow renewed with each shift. In this brief council, morale isn't ignited by rhetoric, but sustained by the quiet fuel of necessity, where duty's flame burns low yet steady against fear's encroaching draft. Much as it did for sentinels in forgotten outposts, their watches a bridge to the present's vigilant luxuries, where threats arrive via alerts, sparing the soul's prolonged strain. The map's reliability wanes in the light, its promises as fickle as a weather forecast in Normandy. Sunny intervals with a high chance of bullets, a thought that curls inwardly with the dawn's wry bite, lightening the oppression fractionally amid the strain of plotting routes through hostile veins. Klein scouts a flank, his eyes sharp despite the fatigue etching Crow's feet premature, while Ellis covers the rear, his rifle a vigilant arc against surprises lurking in the wake. Conversation flows in fragments, water rations low, ammo conserved, each admission a probe into the group's vitality, revealing Harper's blistered feet, Klein's lingering cough from the chill. Yet in this tally, resilience gleams brighter, vulnerabilities not chasms but the mortar binding your edifice, a dynamic that mirrors the improvised kinships of yore, where beleaguered bands turn scarcity into strategy, their echoes a testament to the power of the few, resonating in contemporary weaves where alliances are often digital, not desperate, evoking gratitude for the bonds secured by such shadowed forges. The depression offers fleeting respite, the earth cool beneath you as you lie in wait for a suspected patrol's passage, their murmurs a spectral hum carried on the wind like whispers from another realm. The beach's roar intensifies, a choral backdrop where mortars bloom and rifles crack in symphony, underscoring your inland role as the invasion's hidden chorus, notes of disruption harmonizing with the seaborne crescendo. The lieutenant hushes speculation, his focus laser-sharp on the map's contours. Yet in the enforced quiet, reflections surface. Objectives like the battery ahead aren't mere targets, but lifelines. Their seizure a ripple that might swell into waves crashing through German lines, much as historians would later credit such inland thrusts with easing the 4th Infantry's Utah landing, delaying reinforcements that could have turned tides to bloodier shores. Linking this vigil to the broader current, you ponder the war's inexorable poetry. Men like you, fragments in a grand mosaic, their disarray a chisel carving freedom's form, a valor that bridges eras, where today's strategic simulations spare the heart's raw tempering, a legacy whispering appreciation for the dawns earned by nights like this. The patrol's voices fade, swallowed by the bocage's folds, and you emerge, brushing off the ditch's cling like shedding layers of doubt. The air warmer now with the sun's tentative ascent. The group reforms, steps sinking in a rhythmic push toward the rise, where the battery squats like a brooding sentinel, its guns silent yet pregnant with menace. Johnson takes point, his silhouette a reassuring vanguard, while the medic supports Klein, their pace a testament to the unit's creed. No straggler abandoned, each man a link in the chain-defying fracture. In this advance, morale crystallizes further, not from triumph's rush, but from the steady burn of persistence, where fear's shadow lengthens, yet fails to eclipse duty's light, fueled by the primal urge to honor the absent with forward motion. The irony lingers subtly. Your platoon, cobbled from chaos's debris, marching on objectives with maps as trustworthy as dreams, where the only certainty is the next step, a wry commentary on plans that crumble like the soil underfoot. The rise steepens, the ground firming underfoot, as if the earth itself braces for confrontation, wildflowers dotting the slope like forgotten confetti from a celebration long past. Harper hefts his bar higher, its bipod clinking softly against his belt, while Ellis scans the flanks, his eyes darting like hunted prey sensing the noose. The distant beaches thunder on, a relentless backdrop that infuses your steps with urgency. Visions of comrades scaling cliffs under hail of lead, stirring a kinship that transcends distance. The lieutenant pauses at a vantage, glassing the battery's outline through binoculars scavenged from the patrol, its form a hulking shadow against the brightening sky. In this halt, the group's breath mingles, a collective exhalation that speaks of the toll, blisters, thirst, the medic's kit dwindling like hope in prolonged siege. Yet resilience blooms, the unit's fabric taut yet unbroken. Vulnerabilities the welds in its armor, mirroring the defiant stands of history where small forces bent empire's wills, their stories a beacon illuminating the value of grit in today's softer battles, where endurance is often mental, not mortal. The vantage offers a glimpse of the objective, a cluster of bunkers nestled in the rise, guns trained seaward, like accusatory fingers pointing to the invasion's heart. The lieutenant outlines the approach, flank from the east, strike swift. A plan born from necessity's womb, where duty overrides the fear gnawing at edges frayed by the night's drain. Linking resolve to the rising sun, you feel the timeless pull of such moments, where groups like yours echo the guerrilla whispers that turn tides in shadowed lands, their legacy a whisper in contemporary conflicts where technology tempers the human cost. evoking profound thanks for the pieces secured by dawns like this. The battery awaits, its silence a deceptive lull. And you advance, the group's rhythm a quiet defiance, carrying you toward the confrontation's embrace. The path winds through a final thicket, branches clawing like fingers reluctant to release, the air thickening with anticipation's charge. Johnson signals clear, his form a vanguard blending with the undergrowth, while Riley steadies himself against a trunk, his wound a throbbing reminder of fragility amid the push. The medic redistributes morphine syrettes, their scarcity a grim arithmetic, passed with care that affirms the bond. In this final preparation, morale isn't spoken but felt, a low hum beneath the surface, sustained by the alchemy of shared trial, where fear forges unity from isolation's awe. The irony drifts. 8 men, a force pieced from the drop's wreckage, poised to challenge steel with flesh, as if fate had scripted a tragedy where the actors improvise survival's script. The thicket thins, the batteries rise looming, and you step forward, the dawn's light a double-edged blade illuminating the path to whatever decree awaits. The rise unfurls before you like a crumpled scroll, its crest crowned by the battery's squat forms, concrete bunkers hunkering low against the earth as if burrowed in shame, their gun barrels jutting seaward like fingers accusing the horizon of betrayal. Dawn's light spills reluctantly across the landscape, painting the bocage in hues of bruised gold and shadow, revealing craters pocked like the face of a weary giant scarred by eternal strife. Your group, 8 now, a tenuous vessel navigating war's turbulent sea, creeps forward under the lieutenant's clipped gestures, the air thick with the scent of dew-kissed grass, mingled with distant smoke, a perfume of impending rupture. Johnson flanks left, his Garand a vigilant extension sweeping the flanks, while Riley, steadied by the medic's grip, advances with a grit that defies his paling features, the wound a throbbing underscore to the symphony of your collective breath. Linking caution to the dawn's creeping veil, you feel the unit's pulse quicken, a fragile harmony born from the night's forge, where isolation's embers have kindled a fire that burns low yet unyielding against the chill of what awaits. Chaos unveils itself in the light's merciless clarity, the battery no longer a distant silhouette but a fortress of steel and sandbags, its 80mm gun nestled behind camouflage nets that blend with the hedgerows like a predator's hide, waiting to strike at the beach's vulnerable underbelly. The lieutenant halts at the final cover, a shallow depression ringed by scrub, his voice a hushed command outlining the assault. Charge the left flank, grenades to suppress, rifles to reap. No artillery thunders in support, no tanks rumble as vanguard, just you, 8 shadows armed with desperation and lead, poised against a behemoth that could shred the invasion's fragile threads. Historians, in their detached ledgers, would later exalt such charges as pivotal strokes, paratroopers silencing batteries like this one at Brecourt Manor, easing the 101st's paths and sparing countless on Utah from withering fire. Yet as you ready your Thompson, the knowledge feels abstract, a scholar's footnote to your visceral gamble, where success isn't strategy but survival's narrow ledge, echoing the timeless rushes where outnumbered souls tipped scales, a valor that in today's simulated skirmishes evokes a quiet reverence for the flesh and blood bets that secured horizons we traverse unscathed. The signal comes, a sharp nod, and you surge from cover, legs pumping against the slope's incline, the ground a treacherous ally that shifts underfoot like a lover turning in sleep. Grenades arc from hands, blooming in fiery protest against the bunker's flanks, smoke curling like vengeful spirits rising from disturbed graves. The 88 roars to life, its muzzle flash a blinding sunburst, shells whistling overhead to detonate in the valley below, earth erupting in geysers of soil that rain down like judgment's debris. You weave through the chaos, heart a wild drum echoing the explosions, mud splattering your face like war's careless paint. Johnson fires beside you, Garand cracking sharp retorts that mingle with the din, while Harper's bar chatters a relentless refrain, its rounds chewing at the sandbags like famished beasts. The charge feels eternal, each yard a conquest over fear's grip, where the hill mocks your audacity with its steep defiance, thorns raking legs as if the land itself resents the intrusion. Explosions rip the air, grenades detonating in concussive waves that shake the rise like a giant's awakening tremor. Fragments whizzing past like angry hornets seeking flesh. A bunker door bursts open, Germans spilling out in frantic defense, their Mausers barking in response. Bullets zipping close enough to singe the air with heat's kiss. You dive behind a low mound, firing blindly over its lip, the Thompson bucking in your hands like a creature possessed. Its recoil a jolt that travels up arms numbed by adrenaline's flood. Riley stumbles nearby, caught in the open, but the medic hauls him to cover, their forms a blur amid the smoke's choking veil. The 88 swivels, its barrel a lethal pendulum seeking targets, and in the frenzy, a wry musing surfaces mid-charge. This gun's got better camouflage than your high school prom date. Hard to spot until it's too late, and just as deadly if ignored. The thought, edged with desperation's sharp humor, flashes like a spark in the gloom, lightening the terror's weight fractionally as you lob a grenade, its arc a desperate prayer against the steel maw. The blast rocks the emplacement, smoke billowing like a funeral pyre's plume, obscuring the Germans' forms as they rally, shouts piercing the haze in guttural commands that blend with the beach's distant thunder. Ellis charges the right, his rifle spitting fire that fells a silhouette mid-stride, body crumpling like a puppet with severed strings. The ground heaves under another shell's impact, dirt cascading like a waterfall of regret, and you roll aside, ears ringing with the concussive symphony that drowns thought in noise's tide. Linking burst to frantic burst, you advance in leaps, the unit's cohesion a miracle amid the rupture, where fear isn't banished, but harnessed, a wild steed ridden toward the breach. Historians would frame this assault as emblematic, the 506th Easy Company mirroring your rush at Brecourt, dismantling guns that threatened the 4th Infantry's flank. Yet as shrapnel whistles past, it's the raw immediacy, survival's blade honed against death's whetstone, echoing the charges of law where flesh defied iron, a grit that in contemporary calms whispers thanks for the equilibria bought by such frenzied dawns. Grenades detonate in succession, their blasts carving craters that swallow defenders whole, smoke coiling like serpents escaping Pandora's box, choking vision and breath alike. You fire through the murk, Thompson's chatter a mechanical snarl that echoes your inner tumult, rounds finding marks in the haze where silhouettes jerk and fall. The 88 booms again, its shell arcing seaward to wreak unseen havoc, a reminder that your charge isn't mere skirmish, but a thread in the invasion's vast weave, where failure here could unravel miles of sand-strewn hope. Harper's bar joins the fray, its heavy rhythm a bass line underscoring the chaos, suppressing a machine gun nest that spits lead like venomous retorts. The irony lingers in the frenzy, 8 men storming steel with flesh and fury, as if fate had cast you in a tragedy where the underdogs bark at giants, their yaps amplified by desperation's echo. Linking resolve to the smoke-swirling dance, you feel the timeless surge of such assaults, where small forces like yours mirror the defiant rushes that bent history's arc, their valor a bridge to present gratitudes, where perils are often virtual, not visceral, evoking profound appreciation for the balances secured by charges like this. The bunkers loom closer, their concrete faces pocked by impacts like acne on a titan's cheek, defenders rallying behind sandbags that bulge like overfed sentinels. A German emerges firing wildly, bullets zipping close enough to tug at your sleeve like insistent ghosts, and you return fire, the Thompson bucking as the figure spins away. Explosions chain react, grenades blooming in lethal flowers that scatter shrapnel like confetti from hell's parade, the air thick with dust and cordites bite. Johnson shouts a warning, diving as a burst rakes the ground, and you follow, rolling into a shallow divot where the earth cradles you cool and unforgiving. The 88 swivels toward your flank, its barrel a lethal finger-pointing accusation, and in the heartbeat before it fires, the chaos crystallizes. The charge a microcosm of D-Day's fury, where individual dashes feed the collective wave crashing against Fortress Europe. The gun roars, shell detonating nearby in a geyser of soil that rains down like Judgment's debris, ears ringing with the blast's aftermath as you scramble up, firing into the smoke where shadows jerk and fall. The unit presses, grenades arcing like desperate prayers, explosions ripping the bunker's facade in concussive waves that shake the rise like a giant's awakening tremor. Riley charges despite his limp, the medic at his side, their forms blurring in the haze, while Ellis flanks right, rifle cracking sharp against the din. The irony flashes amid the rupture. This steel beast, hidden better than secrets in a confessional, now exposed by dawn's light, as if the sun itself conspires in your desperate bid. Linking burst to frantic advance, you surge, the group's rhythm a defiant pulse against the battery's thunder, carrying you deeper into the maelstrom where survival hangs on threads spun from fury and fate. The assault intensifies, grenades detonating in chains that carve swords through defenses, smoke curling like vengeful spirits from disturbed graves, obscuring vision yet granting fleeting cover. You lob another, its pin pulled with trembling fingers, the arc a parabola of hope against the gun's maw. The blast rocks the emplacement, fragments whizzing like angry hornets, and you advance through the breach, Thompson chattering retribution into the haze where defenders crumple. The 88 falls silent momentarily, its crew scrambling, and in that pause, the beach's roar seems louder, a choral encouragement that your inland strike might echo there, tipping balances in blood's currency. Historians would exalt this as emblematic, the push mirroring assaults that dismantled coastal threats, sparing thousands on the sands. Yet as shrapnel sings past, it's the raw immediacy, the forge where fear tempers fury, a dynamic echoing the rushes that bent history's will, their legacy a whisper in today's safer shores, where such charges are tales, not trials, evoking gratitude for the equilibria brought by dawns of such desperate light. The bunkers crack under the onslaught, concrete splintering like brittle bones under a hammer's blow, defenders falling back in disarray as your group closes, rifles speaking in unison against the steel's defiance. Johnson dives for cover as a burst rakes the ground, and you follow, rolling into a divot where the earth shields you, its cool kiss a stark contrast to the heat of battle's flush. The charge feels eternal, each yard a conquest over terror's grip, where the hill mocks your audacity with its steep silence, thorns raking as if the land resents the upheaval. The irony curls. This gun, camouflaged better than a deserter's alibi, now laid bare by your desperate lunge, as if fate delights in unveiling secrets at the brink. Linking resolve to the smoke-swirling veil, you rise again, the unit's cohesion a miracle amid rupture, carrying you toward the battery's heart, where victory and loss entwine like lovers in a fatal embrace. The battery's silence descends like a heavy curtain drawn over a stage of carnage, its guns now mute relics twisted in the aftermath, barrels smoking like exhausted sentinels exhaling their final breaths into the warming air. Flames lick at ammo crates, sporadic pops echoing like afterthoughts in a concluded argument, while the emplacement's concrete walls bear fresh scars, pocked and cracked as if the earth itself recoiled from the violence unleashed. Your group, now 5, the assault's merciless reaper having claimed 3 in its swift harvest, slumps amid the wreckage, breaths heaving in ragged unison, the acrid haze of gunpowder coating lungs like a bitter varnish that seeps into every pore. Johnson kneels by Harper's still form, closing eyes that stare blankly at the sky's indifferent blue, a gesture laden with the unspoken farewell that war demands without ceremony. Linking lost to lingering resolve in this smouldering hush, you feel the unit's fabric tear yet hold, threads frayed but not severed, where grief's weight tempers the survivors into a keener edge, a quiet alchemy turning absence into a haunting fuel against the day's encroaching demands. Wounds demand attention now, the medic's hands trembling as he tends to Riley's gash, cloth darkening with blood that flows like accusations unspoken, while you wrap a rag around your own grazed arm, the sting a sharp reminder of fragility amid the triumph's hollow ring. Ellis lies crumpled nearby, his bar silent beside him, a faithful companion outlasted by its wielder, the scene a tableau of costs paid in flesh for ground gained. The irony curls subtly amid the pain. Victory tastes of gun smoke, sharper than any K-ration's bland mockery, a fleeting musing born from the dawn's wry palate, lightening the anguish where desperation savors even bitter fruits as delicacies against starvation's void. Historians, in their measured tomes, would later credit such seizures as turning points. The paratroopers' inland strikes like yours, silencing batteries that might have turned Utah's sands to charnel grounds, easing the 4th Infantry's foothold by diverting shells from the skies, yet at a price that tallied high in the ledger of the lost. Yet as the sun climbs, warming the concrete beneath you, the accolades fade into irrelevance. It's the visceral subtraction etched in the empty spaces where comrades once stood, the toll a bridge to the beach's distant clamour, echoing the timeless exchanges where lives bartered for inches reshaped maps. A legacy that in today's abstracted conflicts evokes a profound nod to the intimacies that forged freedoms we inherit without the scar. The beach's roar swells clearer from this vantage, a tidal symphony where waves of khaki crash against concrete teeth, mortars blooming fatal in the haze, rifles cracking in frantic choruses that underscore the invasion's desperate melody. You imagine them, men from the 1st and 29th scaling cliffs, under hail of lead, their struggle a parallel dirge to your hilltop requiem, where your silenced guns might tip the scales, granting them breaths stolen from the reaper's grasp. The sound vibrates through the ground, a low thrum that resonates in your chest like a second heart, linking your isolated victory to that coastal crescendo, ripples amplifying into surges that overwhelm the enemy's dikes. Linking reflection to the horizon's haze, you ponder the war's inexorable design. Assaults like this, paid in blood's currency, mirroring the charges where small bands claimed heights at soul's expense. Their valor a bridge to present gratitudes where such ascents are simulated, not suffered in flesh. evoking thanks for the equilibriums bought by shadowed ledgers like yours. Bandages tighten, makeshift and meager. The medic's kit exhausted like hope's reserves, yet his touch affirms life's stubborn cling, a gentle counterpoint to the violence's echo. Johnson rises slowly, slinging Harper's bar across his back, its weight a burdensome inheritance that bows his shoulders yet steels his gaze. A silent vow to carry the fallen forward in gear, if not in body. The lieutenant surveys the emplacement, his voice cracked but commanding, directing the sabotage, wires twisted around charges, timers set with fingers numb from shock. A final desecration to ensure the guns remain mute, their threat neutered like a serpent robbed of fangs. The task anchors you, hands busy against the mind's wandering grief, where loss isn't mourned in full but deferred, a debt to be paid in quieter hours. The irony drifts amid the wreckage. 3 down for a gun silenced, like a trade where the house always claims its cut, yet you persist from desperation's deck. A wry nod to the game's rigged rules that sharpens resolve against the odds. The charge is set. You withdraw down the far slope, the battery receding like a conquered phantom, its smoke curling lazy into the sky like supplications unanswered. The group's diminished stride carries a heavier cadence now, steps sinking in muted rhythm that honors the absent, where grief's shadow lengthens yet fails to eclipse the flame of continuance. Riley leans on you briefly, his wound a throbbing communion that binds the living tighter. Vulnerabilities the welds in your armor's remake. The beach's thunder persists, a choral encouragement that infuses your descent with purpose. Visions of the 82nd holding Sainte-Mère-Église, stirring a kinship that overshadows the toll, their stand a mirror to your hilltop dirge. Historians would frame this as emblematic, the paratroopers' costs, like your 3 fallen, buying hours for the armada, turning potential routes into anchors. Yet for you, it's the intimate scar, where triumph and tragedy entwine like vines over ruined stone, echoing the sieges that reshaped realms at prices uncounted, their legacies a whisper in contemporary calms where perils are proxied, fostering deep reverence for the dawns birthed by nights of such exchange. The slope levels into a wooded fringe, trees clustering like mourners at a graveside, their leaves whispering elegies as you infiltrate, seeking cover from prying eyes that might avenge the battery's fall. The lieutenant halts here, consulting his compass with furrowed brow. The needles waver a metaphor for the mission's flux, now compounded by loss. Johnson scouts the perimeter, his form blending with trunks scarred by shrapnel, while the medic redistributes morphine, its scarcity a grim arithmetic passed with care that affirms the bond unbroken. In this wooded sanctuary, morale isn't rallied, but internalized, a low hum beneath the surface, sustained by the alchemy of shared sacrifice where fear forges unity from fragmentation's ore, much as it did for beleaguered flanks in distant campaigns. There holds a bridge to the present's tactical luxuries, where threats are proxied, sparing the heart's prolonged forge. The fringe offers fleeting respite, branches arching overhead like protective arms that filter the sun's glare into dappled patterns on the forest floor. Ellis's absence echoes in the spacing, his vigilant arc now a gap filled by memory, yet Johnson's steady presence affirms the chain's hold, where grief tempers the survivors into a sharper resolve. The distant beaches roar on, a relentless backdrop that underscores your seclusion. Yet in the group's hush, hope flickers anew, a spark nurtured by the embers of mutual reliance despite the voids. The lieutenant outlines the next thrust, harry a supply line, link with stragglers, a plan adapting to the reduced ranks, born from necessity's stark womb. Linking reflection to the sun's climb, you feel the war's poetic severity. Losses like these carving paths forward, a testament to the spirit's capacity for renewal amid ruin. A bridge to today's measured victories, where costs are tallied in data, not dreams deferred. The wooded hush breaks with a distant patrol's murmur, forcing you deeper into cover, where underbrush scratches like forgotten reproaches. The weight, a suspended breath in the day's swelling symphony. The lieutenant signals patience, his focus on the map's contours. Yet in the enforced quiet, thoughts surface. 3 gone for guns silenced, a trade where victory's coin is minted in sorrow. Yet you persist. Desperation's wry dealer shuffling the deck for another hand. The patrol passes, their voices fading like echoes in a hollow hall, and you emerge, the group's rhythm resuming. A muted anthem defying the day's demands, carrying you toward the supply line with the inexorable flow of river to sea. The air warms further, carrying scents of earth and distant smoke, and you advance. The losses a haunting fuel that propels rather than paralyzes. The supply line materializes as a rutted track snaking through the bocage, trucks idling like beasts at rest, their cargo laden with ammo that gleams like promises of destruction deferred. The lieutenant signals the ambush, grenades ready, rifles primed, the group's diminished force a concentrated storm poised to strike. You position mid-flank, Thompson steady, heart a captive bird against ribs, the irony lingering. 5 now, a platoon whittled by war's chisel, yet potent in its purity, where loss hones the edge sharper than abundance ever could. The first grenade arcs, detonating with a thump that shatters the calm. Flames blooming amid the convoy like fatal lotuses, the assault's frenzy seizing you anew. A waltz where desperation leads the dance, turning 5 into a tempest eroding the line's hold. Explosions chain, vehicles igniting in pyrotechnic fury that lights the track like false noons. The air thick with dust and the metallic tang of upheaval that coats your tongue like a bitter prophecy. Johnson fires, his Garand cracking retorts into the chaos, while Riley lobs a grenade, its blast sealing a truck's fate in ruinous cascade. The world compresses to motion and mayhem, rounds whining, sentries crumpling like leaves in gale, the line fractured, its nexus severed in the storm's wake. Linking surge to desperate surge, you feel the assault's rhythm consume you, where each fallen foe tips the balance, a microcosm of the invasion's erosion, mirroring the onslaughts that claimed junctions at costs uncounted. Their valor a bridge to present gratitudes where such pivots are simulated, not suffered. The line falls silent, wreckage smoldering like defeated dreams, the group's remnants gathering amid the debris, breaths heaving in unison with the beach's clamor, where triumph tastes of ash and loss, a hollow echo of the greater symphony. Johnson kneels by the fallen, closing eyes that stare blankly, a gesture heavy with unspoken. Brothers parted by the veil. The lieutenant rallies, voice steady yet cracked, plotting the next hold as if the line were but a stepping stone in fate's uneven path. In this pause, the irony surfaces. Success paid in blood, like a game where the prize is another round, desperation dealing from the bottom. Linking reflection to the horizon, you feel the war's austerity, losses carving forward, a testament to renewal amid ruin, a bridge to today's victories where costs are data, evoking thanks for equilibria bought by exchanges like this. The line secured, the war's shadow lengthens, a reminder victory is pause in struggle. The air warms, carrying gunpowder and earth, and you move, steps a defiant echo in light. The barn looms at the bocage's edge like a weary ghost, offering refuge from the dawn's intrusive light. Inside, your group, now 4, the echoes of the 8 who stormed the rise, collapses onto hay bales. The air is thick with musty straw and the faint tang of distant smoke. Johnson secures the door with a rusted beam, and the lieutenant slumps in a corner, his eyes charting a labyrinth of losses. In the dim hush, you feel the remnants of your squad bind tentatively, breaths aligning in a collective exhale. Rations emerge like relics, K-rations, crumpled and sparse, divided with fingers still quivering from the ambush. You pass around a tin of cheese paste, its metallic flavor a reminder of shared scarcity. Stories trickle forth in the gloom. Johnson murmurs of a boyhood river, a metaphor for this endless pull against fate. The lieutenant adds fragments of pre-war letters, his voice as low as the barn's creaking beams. A cigarette stub is passed with reverent care, its glow illuminating faces shadowed by guilt, the vacant stare creeping like ivy over resolve. These were killings not for hatred, but for survival's cold imperative, a burden carried like chains clinking in the quiet. You touch the photo in your pocket, its image blurring, stirring a sorrow that settles as heavy as the hay. A fearful French villager slips in with a jug of water and cheese, his hands trembling. You accept with murmured thanks, the water as cool as forgotten mercy. He whispers of hidden paths and allied advances, his fear a mirror to yours, a civilian entangled in a soldier's net. This gesture extends a thread of humanity, a kindness that feels like a rebellion against the occupation's yoke. Respite ends as the lieutenant rises, a nod signaling renewal. Rest is a luxury, an armistice in the soul's private war. You step out into the day's full glare, the roar from the beaches a choral encouragement. The barn recedes, a sanctuary now only in memory. Allies materialize from the mist, apparitions from a well of hope. Paratroopers from the 506th, a squad from the 82nd. Crickets confirm kinship before rifles are lowered, welding your swelling fold together like rain merging into a stream. There is no fanfare, only nods and glances heavy with the shared toll. Gear is redistributed, ammunition clips passed like sacraments, water exchanged with thanks that bind you tighter with necessity. Johnson clasps a newcomer's shoulder, recounting the fall of the battery. Individual desperations coalesce into a force pulsing with renewed vigor. The irony drifts. Finally, reinforcements. Better late than never, you muse with the day's wry lens, unless you were the one waiting in the mud. Desperation savors tardy salvation with the delicacy of one who has survived a famine of abandonment. As you witness this confluence, you sense the war's poetry, scattered souls reconverging like tributaries into a river. The group's swell brings a definitive shift, isolation yielding to integration as the fog burns off in the sun's gaze. Your hilltop echoes begin to harmonize with the coastal crescendo. The lieutenant confers with a newfound captain, maps aligning in hurried sketches, plans adapting to reinforced numbers, a push toward Carentan, flanks secured with hard-won knowledge of the terrain. The vacant stare that threatened to claim you recedes slightly, its guilt-ridden shadow shortening in the light of renewed camaraderie. Momentum builds. Vehicles rumble in the distance, a thunder promising rain in a drought. You spot the first Sherman tank cresting a rise, its turrets swiveling like a watchful eye. The sight stirs a quiet reflection. You are no longer alone in the bocage's moor, but part of a tide surging inland. The tanks halt nearby, their crews disembarking with calls that bridge the gap, integrating your remnant into their fold with handshakes and shared cigarettes. You reload your Thompson from their ammunition stores, its weight feeling lighter in the company's embrace. Historians would note this integration as the fruition of the airborne drop. But for you, it is an intimate rebirth. The hollow of loss fills with the clamour of allies, a testament to resilience's resurgence. The column moves forward, the bocage parting, carrying you toward the next horizon in an inexorable flow. The air warms, scents of earth and exhaust mingling. You breathe deeper, the fear, a heavy quietness, finally settling like mist dispersing. The night's journey fades through Normandy's shadowed bocage, where fear and resolve wove your tale, a paratrooper's dance with fate. Let your limbs soften, sink into the quiet, ready for sleep's gentle embrace. If wakefulness lingers, share your thoughts below. Where are you? What stirs your heart? Tomorrow's dusk brings another story, whispering history's lullaby. For now, breathe deep, let the war's echoes dissolve, and drift into the night's tender hush, where dreams reclaim the dawn.